Gentlemen, um, a very warm welcome from CII. The topic today is private sector opportunities in defense manufacturing and CII's own recently launched defense and aerospace consultancy services. The session will be today hosted by Rear Admiral Preetham Lal, retired from the Indian Navy, and Siddharth Sivaraman, that would be me, consultant to the CII. And the first half of the session will be handled by Admiral Preetham Lal. And after he's done, I will be taking over and discussing the defense and aerospace consultancy services. So over to Admiral Preetham Lal.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. First of all, allow me to thank CII and Mr. Siddharth for giving me this opportunity to share my views on a very contemporary subject today with you. Opportunity for Indian private industry in defense sector. I will cover my presentation in 4 sections. After a brief introduction on the subject, we will look at the size and breakup of defense budget. What kind of capital spend is there? How does the Indian industry view it? More importantly, where does it all go? What is the size of opportunity for Indian industry? I will thereafter give a brief overview of the defense procurement procedure, as this is the main channel for orders to flow to the industry. Government of India is cautious of the situation in the defense sector, wherein almost 70% of the defense capital budget is spent on imports. This not only deprives business by Indian industry, it makes us to rely on foreign sources for our national defense. So it will be worthwhile to look at what all is the government trying to do. What does government call for Make in India mean for the Indian private industry aspiring to plug into the defense sector? Before concluding my talk thereafter, we will also look at a framework which shows the way to plug into the defense sector for the new entrants. So let's begin to understand the defense sector. India has a very large land frontier covering all types of terrains, vast coastline and an exclusive economic zone as well as island territories, vital offshore installations and airspace to defend. There is therefore hardly any surprise that India maintains the third largest armed force in the world. India's defense spending is accordingly commensurate with the requirements to equip the armed forces with platforms, weapons, and sensors of most contemporary technology. India spends 40% of the defense budget on capital acquisitions annually. For 2015-16, with an outlay of 2,46,000 crores, anticipated capital spend would be close to 1 lakh crores. And sadly, 70% of this amount would probably go into imports if one believes that the past trend will continue. This persistent import of all variety of equipment, systems and platforms for defense forces is a matter of grave concern. the situation that having first procured these capabilities, one remains dependent on foreign OEMs for life cycle support and then upgradation, and thereafter its consequent replacement with new and more contemporary technology and capabilities. It is to reverse this trend and attain certain level of self-reliance in critical areas of defense capabilities that Government of India has been making initiatives to encourage and enhance participation of the Indian private industry in defense sector. Beginning with the opening up of the defense sector for private industry in 2001, promulgation of a defense procurement procedure in 2002, government is now making consistent policy reforms to enlarge defense industrial base beyond the 9 DPSUs and 39 ordnance factories. Introduction of offsets buy and make Indian category into DPP 2011 and preferred order of categorization DPP 2013. All these initiatives are aimed at directing defense business into Indian industry and also enabling the Indian industry to develop competence in critical areas in aerospace, warship and submarine construction and developing indigenous weapons and sensors. The latest initiative, Make in India, is further set to galvanize the Indian defense sector. It will bring many more initiatives to facilitate Indian private industry, large companies as well as MSMEs to participate in the defense sector. I will explain some of these during my talk in due course. With these introductory remarks, let me proceed to unfold the large opportunities in defense sector that await the Indian private industry. It would be for the industry to rise to the occasion and make use of these opportunities. Let's look at the defense budget. How does it translate into opportunities for the Indian industries? I'll take you through a series of data on defense budget and its allocation for capital acquisitions to reduce the size of business opportunities that will come. I would like to clarify at this stage that all data presented here is taken from Ministry of Defense reports and industry surveys which have been published and are available in the web domain. India's defense budget has been growing at a steady pace since 1999, that is the post-Kargil conflict. As you can see from the slide on the right hand side, between 2007-2008 and 2014-15, the outlay for defense has been growing at a rate which is almost 13% per annum. From 92,000 crore in 2007-8, it became 2,03,500 crores in 2013-14. Industry analysts have opined that it's likely to continue to grow at 7 to 8% over the next few years. For 2015-16, an allocation of 2,46,727 crore has been made by the government, which is approximately 40 billion US dollars. Now, how much of this budgetary allocation is spent by the government on capital procurement? That is what is business for the industry. As I have shown on the viewpoint, as per the trends, average 40% of the allocated defense budget is utilized for capital procurements. The data on this graph corroborates this. The capital spend has also been increasing in line with the budgetary allocations that have been made by the government. You can see the trend. For 2015-16, overall budgetary allocation, as I mentioned, is 2,46,727 crores. At 40%, the capital spend is expected to be 1,000 crores, which is approximately 16 billion US dollars. Let us next look at how this capital spend is going to be allocated for different category of procurements. On the left-hand side, I have shown the various categories for which this money is spent by the Government of India for defense acquisitions. You can see that close to 75% of this budget is allocated for platforms such as aircrafts, helicopters, warships, submarines, and armored vehicles. Another 15% is spent on air defense systems and missiles. More importantly, you can see on the left-hand side that there is a clear relationship between the capital budget and the imports, which continuously stand at close to 70% of the total budgetary allocation of capital spend. This is the sad part. Going by this trend, imports during 2015-16 may touch 10 billion US dollars. And we may also note that trends for the capital outlay and imports, despite all efforts of the Government of India towards achieving self-reliance, indigenization, indigenous manufacture of many major systems platforms by DPSUs, percentage of imports have continued to remain at 60 to 70% steady. This is the major cause of concern for the government, and this is also the major opportunity for the Indian private industry. Now, with these figures and the trends that I have indicated to you, let me take you to the next stage where we have a look, we have a view of what is it that the Indian industry, Indian defense industry look like. Indian defense industry has been dominated by the 9 DPSUs and 39 ordnance factories. All are administered by the Ministry of Defense. These entities together manufacture almost all defense platforms, aircrafts, ships, submarines, tanks, and armored personnel carriers and whatnot, and weapon systems and equipment too. Just to give you a list, Hindustan Aeronautics, Bharat Electronics, BEML, BDML, Mishra Dhatu Limited, and 4 shipyards, MDL, GRSC, GSL, and HSL, constitute the 9 DPSUs. Participation of the private sector at this stage is actually really minuscule. With recent initiatives that the government is making, one can sense the change in the air. Since opening up of the defense sector for private industry participation, DIPP has so far issued 220 letters of intent and issued industrial licenses to more than 150 companies for manufacture of a wide range of defense items. Now, let's look at the projections for the defense budget and likely capital spend over the next 2 plan periods up to 2027. Let me mention that These projections coincide with the 15-year long-term integrated perspective plan, LTIPP as it is known, of the defense, which also covers the period from 2012 to 2027. Industry analysts have projected a growth of 10% year on year in defense budget over the next two plan periods. With 2014-15 allocation at 229,000 crores as the reference, it has been projected that defense budget may touch 2,97,000 crores by 2017, which is the end of the 12th plan period, and which is 45 billion US dollars, and it may touch rupees 5,73,000 crores, that is US dollars 86 billion by 2022, which is the end of the 13th plan. These figures look huge by any standards. And at 40% of the total outlay, capital outlay may therefore touch 2,23,000 crores in 2022. And 30% of the capital spent, if the existing trends continue, will be the share of the Indian market, and that is estimated to about 86,300 crores. Now just imagine the trajectory of the size of Indian defense market as the Indian government implements policy initiatives to reduce imports and increase the indigenous manufacture. A mere 10% reduction in imports over the next 5 years will increase the share of the Indian industry by another 20,000 crores over the next 5 years. So, let me sum up for you as to where the Indian defense industry is anticipated to be in 5 years from now if we take 2014-15 as the reference. For 2015-16, defense outlay has been pegged at 2,46,000 crores. Share of the Indian industry is estimated to be 30,543 crores in case the existing trend of imports continue. That is, 70% of the capital spent is for imports. Now, defense offsets, which currently stand at approximately 4 billion US dollars, will also contribute and add to this figure of 30,543 crores. This opportunity is expected to expand to a size of 86,350 crore by 2022, and an additional 10,000 crore business may come through discharge of offsets. As I have shown earlier, estimated capacity of DPSUs and ordnance factories is approximately 40,000 crores as per 2013-14 data. So there will be a huge deficit in capacity. This deficit for manufacturing will increase even more as imports are reduced. As I mentioned, a mere 10% reduction will require additional capacity of 20,000 crores during the next 5 years. This is what has to come from Indian private industry. 40 to 50,000 crores. That is the anticipated share of Indian defense business which private industry can aim for. Right. Having appreciated the likely size of this industry, let us now proceed to understand procedures in the defense. Now, I don't intend to make this a tutorial on defense procurement procedure. I want to essentially highlight certain features of the Defense Procurement Procedure 2013, which act as enablers for participation of the Indian private industry. Right? So, Defense procurement procedure covers all capital acquisitions except medical equipment, which is undertaken by the Ministry of Defense and the Services Headquarters. The procedure came into being in 2002, has been revised on many occasions in the past: 2005, 2008, 2009, 2011. DPP 2013 is in force at this moment. One of the features of DPP is that each procurement scheme is given a category depending on the source, that is foreign or Indian, indigenous content, requirement of TOT from foreign OEMs or R&D organizations, mode of TOT, etc. I'll just briefly give you what these categories are. First category is buy. Under the buy category, we have further divided it into two subcategories: buy Indian, wherein the Indian firms, including joint ventures with the foreign OEMs, can participate. Minimum indigenous content required for the scheme is kept at 30%. The other category is buy global, which is open for foreign firms, and for all contracts which are more than 300 crores, the foreign firms are obliged to discharge offsets, which are minimum 30% of the contract value. What is interesting is that even Indian firms can participate in programs under the Buy Global category. They will have to discharge offsets in case the indigenous content in their product is less than 50%. Or the other way around, they don't have to discharge any offsets in case the indigenous content is more than 50%. The next category is buy and make. Again, under this category, we have buy and make Indian on one side and buy and make. In the bracket, I have indicated global because that is how most of the people refer to this category. Looking at buy and make Indian first. Under the buy and make Indian categories, Indian firms, including JVs, foreign OEMs, can participate. Responsibility for the complete project lies with the Indian firm, who may choose technical collaboration with the foreign OEM or obtain transfer of technology. Now, under this scheme, basically the Indian companies choose their foreign partners and bid. They have to meet the indigenous content requirements of the product. Indigenous content is stipulated as an overall figure for the whole project, as well as various stages of production during the project. That is, in case it has got an SKD phase, there will be a requirement of meeting that indigenous content. There may be a CKD phase, or there will be an indigenous manufacture phase. The second category is buy and make, which is basically the RFP in this category is issued to the foreign firms. Under this category, transfer of technology is given to the nominated Indian production agency, nominated by Ministry of Defense. So far, this nomination has been going largely to DPSUs. Private industry has not yet been given any nomination, but in future, hopefully, policy changes will bring this too. The responsibility for complete project actually lies with the foreign firm, though they are making the transfer of technology. They are responsible to make sure that the receiving production agency absorbs the technology and start producing the product to the same quality standards same performance standards as is there in the RFP. Another feature of this scheme is, this category is, that the foreign OEMs have to discharge offsets which are minimum 30% of the value of the contract. There is a separate chapter on the offset, separate appendix on the offsets, offset guidelines, so I'll not go further into it. What is important to bring out is that this 30% of the contract value which is made to the foreign OEM actually comes back into the country because the foreign OEM is required to source products and services from the Indian entities for that value of the contract. Again, in this also there is a requirement of meeting the indigenous content overall as well as during various stages of the production of the project. Now, the key issue is that in both the cases, the range and depth of the transfer of technology, including the requirement of critical technologies, is specified in the RFP. Therefore, Indian vendors as well as foreign vendors, they are considered only if they meet the requirement of transferring the range and depth of technology which is listed in the RFP. The other category, the last category, is make. This is a procedure to which a whole chapter has been dedicated in the DPP, and it is only for the Indian companies and consortia of Indian companies who can participate in make procedure, under which the Ministry of Defence has indicated to take up high technology complex systems, their design and development, as well as upgradation of the in-service systems of the three services. There are a number of criteria which are given for eligibility of the Indian companies to participate in this program. Some of those include the turnover criteria as well as the capital assets criteria, profitability record, resale rating, etc. Beauty of this scheme is that 80% of the developmental cost for the project is given by the Ministry of Defence. The company itself has to put in 20%. Again, this is a scheme which is almost design and development kind of thing, wherein between the service and the selected OEM, the whole project is conceived and executed in a cooperative. On successful development of the product, it is required to be taken through full field trials. And only after field trials are successfully completed, the order on the selected firms who have participated in this program is placed by the Ministry. Another key feature of DPP 2013, which actually enables the Indian industry, or rather actually facilitates much higher level of participation by the Indian industry, is preferred order of categorization that has been stipulated in DPP 2013. As indicated below, every scheme is given one of the 5 categories which are there in DPP, but preference is given to Buy Indian, Buy Make Indian, and Make, where the RFP is issued only to the Indian entities over the 2 other categories, which is Buy and Make and Buy Global, in which case RFP would have been issued to the global entities, that's foreign entities. This is a huge enabler. Not only that, in the DPP, it has been stipulated that the sponsoring service for that particular scheme is required to give a detailed justification for recommending a particular category that is one of the above five, as well as give reasons why each of the higher preferred category is not considered suitable for the scheme. Therefore, it is both a positive stipulation, at the same time negative stipulation for the global buy and make global and buy global categories. And I may just add that some of the data that are available, this just shows the change that is taking place. You can see during 2013, 14 and 2014, 15, how has the uh, whole scene changed for the Indian industry. Let me mention that DPP 2013 was promulgated to come into effect on 1st July 2013. During 2013-14, under Buy Indian category, total number of contracts, total number of schemes rather, they are, I must clarify that at this stage we are talking of approval of necessity, which is accorded by the ministry for a particular scheme. So the AONs were given for 25 cases under Buy Indian category in 2013-14. Value was 21,000 crores. In 2014-15, under Buy Indian category, 35 schemes have been approved. The value is 38,318 crores. In the Buy and Make Indian category, accordingly, I mean, if you see 2013-14, two schemes, value 2,733 crores, and Buy and Make Indian, four schemes, value 72,750 crores. Now you can see what is going to happen. All these AONs are going to be made into contracts during the next 2 to 3 years, because that is the period of validity of an AON. The services will take these through the process of procurement. That is, they will do an RFI, they will issue RFP, they will carry out all the technical evaluations and negotiations before it can be converted into contract. But the main point is that out of total approval for acquisition schemes for 1,17,000 odd crores, more than uh, more than 1 lakh crores of schemes are only for Indian industry under categories Buy Indian, Buy and Make Indian. That is why we are saying that there is a huge opportunity for Indian private industry to partake in the defense sector. You can see it for yourself. This is where we are saying that there are green shoots of change in the defense sector. This trend of increasing the Buy Indian, Buy and Make Indian share in the overall defense mix bodes well for the future of the Indian defense industry. This will also change the character of the industry, as many more companies will take up the role of system integrators in India to Buy and Make Indian processes. And they will acquire technology, they will acquire expertise and skills from the foreign OEMs and the R&D organizations. Let me now move on to the initiatives of the government over and above what they have done in the defense procurement procedure. As you are all aware, Government of India launched an initiative, Make in India, in 2014, with the sole aim of making our country a global manufacturing hub in all sectors, and of course defense sector is a key sector. Now, under this initiatives, in 2015, May, Ministry had constituted a committee of experts to evolve a policy framework to facilitate Make in India and defense manufacturing, and also suggest amendments to DPP 2013. The report of the committee has been submitted and it is also available on the website of the Ministry of Defense. A large number of recommendations have been made by the committee, both for alignment of the procedure for Make in India and also many other inputs for facilitating the Indian private industry to participate in the defense sector. Some of the initiatives that have been taken by the government during this period of 1 year, I have enumerated on the screen for you. FDI limit has been enhanced from 26 to 49%. The process of grant of industrial licenses has been greatly rationalized. They have recently promulgated a new procedure for export of defense equipment. They have also taken steps so that level playing field can be created for the private industry with respect to DPSUs as well as the foreign OEMs. And as you are aware, they've already promulgated the orders regarding exchange rate variation protection for the Indian private industry also for all categories of procurements. Government of India have issued instructions and directives to the DPSUs and ordnance factories who are presently the major stakeholders of the indigenous business as far as the defense industry is concerned. This, in my opinion, is going to create very large size of opportunities for all the Indian private industry. What have they said? Government has advised the DPSUs and ordnance factories to increase the outsourcing to private industry. It's estimated that existing outsourcing by the DPSUs and ordnance factories is approximately 15 to 20% of their turnover, which is around 40,000 crores. They won't increase it further, increase it to whatever they can take to 25%, 30%. They've also been instructed to reserve a list of items for MSME, and I believe that some of the PSUs have already put up such lists on their website of items which are reserved for MSME. In fact, they have placed a list of all outsourcing tasks on their company websites. Further, to facilitate the participation of the private industry and partake the outsourcing business of the DPSUs and ordnance factories, they have appointed nodal officers. Again, their details are available and one could contact them to seek clarifications on the manner in which any company, any Indian company who's got a product or who's got a license for the defense products can link to the DPSUs and ordnance factories. Interestingly, even DPSUs have extended their test facilities to the private industry, which was hitherto not available to them. DRDOs and DPSUs are now being encouraged to partner with private industry for R&D projects. DRDO and DGQA have been asked to extend the test facilities to private industry. Now, DGQA has been actually giving their test facilities on nominal cost to the private industry. Additionally, now DRDO will do the same. Let me now come to the nuts and bolts of how things happen. Have a look at this. This is how the capital spend is actually flowing to the Indian private industry. Under the capital head, all procurements are done under the provisions which are there in the defense procurement procedure. This is run by the Ministry of Defense and the service headquarters. Orders are placed on DPSUs, ordnance factories and private industry and foreign OEMs, depending upon the category of procurement. The main vendors, whether they are DPSU, ordnance factory or private industry, in turn outsource certain works to the Indian private industry, which includes MSMEs. In fact, it is believed that there are over 6,000 MSMEs which are linked to DPSUs and private ordnance factories to support their production. Now, with the introduction of the offsets, the foreign OEMs also generate business for the Indian private industry. I have indicated some figures on this screen. The figure 10%, which is on the left hand side, actually is the size of business which is presently with the private industry. 10% of the Indian business. That means if the total capital spend is 100 crores, 70 crores is actually going for imports. The balance 30 crores is being spent between DPSU, ordnance factories and private industry. The share of private industry is barely 10% of the total indigenous spend. Additionally, DPSUs outsource 20 to 40% of what they get from the government as outsourcing to the Indian private industry, and 30% of orders of the 30% of the values of the import orders also flow to the private industry as offset obligations. This is another area of opportunity for the Indian private industry. The armed forces do not just spend only on capital acquisitions. They've got a huge inventory of weapons, sensors, systems, platforms, that is aircrafts, helicopters, ships, submarines, and whatever. They have to maintain these. These have been obtained from a lot of sources, including global sources. They need spares, they need repair and maintenance support. They need replacement of many of these equipment. So, a very large part of the revenue budget, which is 60% of the defense budget, is also spent on the management, that is maintenance, repair, spares, etc. of the inventory of the armed forces. That also flows to the Indian industry. In fact, largely to the Indian industry, whether it is directly or it is through the DPSUs, the ordnance factories, or major private industry. That is I want to see. But I suspect that a large part of this business flows directly from the services to the Indian private industry and largely MSME. This is another major opportunity, and this is where actually the industry can capitalize without too much of procedural hassles which one may otherwise perceive to exist in capital procurements. Now, just to complete our discussions, let me just give out certain basic requirements for a new entrant to plug into the industry. The defense sector actually encompasses a very diverse range of industry that includes metallurgy, general engineering, heavy engineering, electrical engineering, electronics, and whatnot, including IT now. The key is that very high standards of product quality, stringent adherence to the environmental and performance specifications, and cutting-edge contemporary technologies are required, and these are inherent to the defense systems because of the nature of application that they have to be put into. The ministry, service headquarters, DRDO, ordnance factories all have promulgated detailed guidelines for empowerment of the private industry for meeting their requirements. And let me tell you that the requirements of all these agencies are similar. They are all coming out of a joint services guide which has been promulgated by the Ministry of Defense, and vendor selection, vendor development is as per these guidelines. Now, there will be other requirements that includes technical capability and capacity. They look for quality certifications for all the industry that want to participate and link up with them. They also look for process certifications by the relevant authorities. For example, if you want to carry a aerostructure or any material, any product for the aviation sector, it is necessary to obtain SEMILAC qualification or DGA QA qualification. So these are looked for. Product certification is necessary, but let me tell you that product certification comes only after you make a product as per the specification. Once you have got a product certification, your product is approved for use in the armed forces. No more certification is required. Now, depending upon the nature of participation that an industry looks for, there may be other parameters which could be financials, credit rating, and things like that. They also look for R&D facilities if you want to participate in the R&D projects. And for capital procurement, one key requirement is there in addition to all the other qualifications, and that is that you must participate in the RFI stage of procurement. Because until you participate in the RFI process, you would not have actually realized what is the specification of the product that the service is looking for. Not only that, you would not know the requirements of the overall project. For example, what kind of trials will be required? Will it be field trial or will it be only technical evaluation? Where will the trials take place? What will be the actual range of trials? Will it be in one location or many locations? Will it be in one season or many seasons? Right? What will be the delivery schedule and things like that. Now, all this will have to be adhered to for participation, and but overall process is fairly straightforward. Details of such vendor registration procedures are available on the website of all the DPSUs, ordnance factories, DRDO, and service organizations. In fact, all the three services have got a directorate each for indigenization, and they are the ones who facilitate, along with the DGQA, to carry out registration of the vendors. To conclude, I would just like to say that defense sector is growing steadily at almost 10% year on year. It offers vast opportunities to private industry of all sizes, of diverse disciplines and levels of confidence. Make in India policy will call for extensive capacity expansion in defense manufacturing, over and above what exists in DPSUs and over ordnance factories. This should come from the private industry. This is the major opportunity, and as I mentioned earlier, this opportunity could be as big as 50,000 crores over the next 5 years. In my opinion, time is therefore very opportune for the private industry to plug into defense sector as per individual industry's competence, strength and aspirations. I'm done. Thank you so very much, and I hand over to Mr. Siddharth for the next part of the webinar. Thank you.
Thank you, Admiral, um, for that very detailed description on the opportunities for the private Indian industry in defense sector. And now I would like to talk about the defense and aerospace consultancy services, which has been recently launched by the CII Defense Division. Now, why did we launch this service, and what is the reason behind launching this service? Now, let us look at the current scenario in defense manufacturing. Defense manufacturing, if we are honest to ourselves, in India remains dismally low. In the mid 80s, when our late Honorable President Dr. Abdul Kalam was scientific advisor to Raksha Mantri, had conducted a study, and it was found that only 30% of the content at that time was of indigenous nature. And it is sad to see that even after almost 30 years, close to 30 years, the percentage has not changed. Has the industry changed? This is a question that we have to ask ourselves. Definitely it has. What are some of the other areas where? Poor design capability in critical technologies. As far as core competencies are concerned today, there are about 5 or 6 critical areas where Indian industry lacks. We do not have that technology. We have to go to foreign OEMs for sourcing them. And these technologies form the core of any weapons platform. They are the heart and soul of any weapons platform. And we lack. There is also the situation where the investment in R&D remains dismally low. Well, the R&D today is dominated by the DRDO and its laboratories. They have done some good work, but at the same time, they have not been able to deliver where our armed forces have required technologies to manufacture some of the most important platforms. We also have the inability to manufacture major subsystems, especially related to electronic warfare suits, weapons that form a part of major weapons systems, and the components that form a part of those systems. And most importantly, there is a lack of capability assessment for defense manufacturing. The government today does not know where to go. Now, as Admiral had pointed out the opportunities that exist for the Indian private sector, my question is, does the government know where to go? So I feel that there is a silver lining in the dark cloud, and it is time to discover capabilities in the market. A quick snapshot, as far as opportunities are concerned, is there for you to see. I'm not going to waste too much time on it. You can see the revenue and capital expenditure, divided amongst various arms of the military. So this is something that you can look at and ponder upon. Now, once again, as it was previously mentioned, that there are 6,000 MSME currently supplying to the defense sector. The number can go up significantly. Now, the number 6,000 has been floating around in the market since the year 2002, if I am not mistaken. And anyone who has worked in the Indian corporate sector knows that there is far greater capability that exists in the Indian industry, and it remains to be discovered. That is where the capability assessment becomes extremely important. The outlook has become brighter. Make in India has given a much needed push to the sector, and push, I would say that the Indian industry is now beginning to look at the defense sector as an area for investment, as an area for opportunity. At least they are approaching the right agencies, the industry bodies such as CII. They're beginning to question the government policies. They are beginning to look at the opportunities and what is in it for them. Do they have a play in this sector or not? Now, in the next decade or so, a little over a decade, it is estimated that nearly INR 250 billion will be spent on acquisition of military items. New entrants are coming into the sector. Um, Many of you would have read in the newspapers, some major players have come up. Just about 8 years ago, these players did not exist in the defense sector, and today some of them are going on to manufacture light utility helicopters, frigates, and whatnot. OEMs also are willing to manufacture in India, but under the right conditions, and also with partners that can absorb technologies. Absorbing technology is one of the most critical areas because OEMs would not dilute their branding if they were to partner with companies that have the inability to absorb such technologies. How does the government know who can absorb these technologies? We just have those 6,000 companies that we keep talking about. We need to discover who the new entrants are, where they are. I am of the opinion that just because you are not supplying to the defense sector does not mean that you cannot. You very well might have capabilities that are even better to the usual suspects who are currently supplying, but we need to discover them. Now the government is also going in for the creation of new global supply chains, defense clusters, especially MRO in aerospace offers huge opportunities for the private sector. And when I say MRO in aerospace, I also would like to include the civil commercial aerospace. If you look at Indigo, if you look at SpiceJet, Jet Airways, they are all buying aircrafts by the hundreds. But it is sad to see that most of these MRO work is being done abroad by our neighboring countries. Now, defense sector also offers export opportunities. Once again, it is a question of identifying those companies that can do so, and they do exist. Now, let me talk about Dacs, or Defense and Aerospace Consultancy Services. Why? Why did we launch this service? Number one, there is low awareness about Indian manufacturing capabilities. It has been my personal experience that the government of India Ministry of Defense lacks the resource to refer what are the Indian manufacturing capabilities. Certain items that are currently being supplied to other sector, non-defense sectors, can very well be tweaked, can very well be formatted to serve the defense sector. But the government is unaware. There is demand from the users to assess industry. The government has also indicated to us, that is CII, that there is a need to explore the market, to identify the new players, the new entrants, the new technologies that have been brought into the country. There is absolutely no accurate or complete picture. There is no guide. Now, new entrants have no policy clarity. That is one of the biggest reasons why Dacs was launched. Dacs was launched to do a capability mapping of the Indian industry, where our experts would go across India, wherever they are, find out what their existing capabilities are, and more importantly, what their latent capabilities are. Our panel of experts, which consists of ex-servicemen with over 20 years of experience, DRDO officials who have been scientists, engineers, and some officials from the DPSUs who have vast experience in procurement as well as manufacturing. These people will be sent across India to visit companies, visit the plants, visit the facilities, look at what kind of manufacturing exists, what kind of capabilities exist, what kind of tooling exists, what kind of machinery exists, and more importantly, they will give advisory to people who have a passion to enter the defense sector on what they should do to augment their capabilities, to enhance their capacities, to become a part of this growing sector. Ladies and gentlemen, I think with the right capability assessment, the Make in India initiative has got the potential to become a great initiative. Now, once a company has been mapped, a report will be generated. Now, this report will serve as a guide. It will be a guiding document to the industry as well as to the user. When I say user, user always means the MOD, the Government of India, allied agencies. The mapping will provide a capability assessment to the Indian industry to engage in defense manufacturing. As Admiral had talked about the make procedure, which is what the government aims to do in the next a decade, decade and a half. It wants to make everything in India. But if it wants to make everything in India, who does it turn to? Who does it turn towards? That is what the CII Defense and Aerospace Consultancy Services will attempt to do. It will identify those companies that have the willingness, the passion to enter the defense sector. It will give them advisory on what it needs to do on policy, on manufacturing, and various other aspects so that it can successfully enter the defense sector. Now, this guiding document becomes the core of our advisory. The guiding document will not only serve as a guide to the panel of expert who is mapping the company, but also the government when it calls on a particular make procedure. Now this information will be eventually given to the MOD, given to the allied MOD agencies for them to have a compendium to refer to whenever they have a major weapons platform to be manufactured under the make procedure or the various other procedures that are there in place for defense manufacturing. Without capability assessment, I think most of our policies will remain nothing but a pipe dream. We will be stuck at the 30% indigenous content number. We need to know who these people are. Now, once the mapping has been done, the second phase will come into action. The second phase will involve in-depth advisory to individual company on what they need to do. Many areas such as indigenization can be indigenization of existing systems and subsystems that are procured from abroad that need to be re-engineered, or productionization of indigenous or homegrown technologies. CSIR labs such as NAL, DRDL, DRDO labs such as DRDL, etc., have a whole host of indigenous technologies, but they don't see the light of day unless they are productionized. There is a level up to which a lab can engage in prototyping, but after that, the industry has to take over, bring it into production. Now, that is something that we will advise on. Secondly, as offset was mentioned, it is a complex process. Who can become an offset partner? What does he need to have in place to successfully execute an offset contract? These are some of the areas where CII Defense and Aerospace Consultancy Services will provide advisory. So basically, we have a phase 1, we have a phase 2, and we have a phase 3 also, but I would not get into it right now because we are still at phase 1. We are still in the discovery mode. We are still in the mode of capability assessment. Now, what are the benefits of this mapping project? The benefit is clearly to discover and quantify capabilities of the industry. As I'm repeatedly mentioning, there is absolutely no resource guide that quantifies a particular capability. It will help the government assess the need for further technical upgradation. At times, it has been my personal experience also that there is plenty of capability available in India, especially electronics, software, but we still end up going for global purchases. Now, this is something that the government needs to look into, and mapping would provide an answer to this logjam. The mapping will also provide useful inputs for the means to expand capacities and capacity building. And most importantly, it will strengthen the defense sector and industry partnership. Now, as I had mentioned earlier, the report will serve as a guiding document. The government will be able to identify the right partners for all future programs. Now, that is one of the most important things. You can have the right policy in place. You have the right initiative in place. You can even have the finances in place. But unless you know where the industry is, who the companies are, how are you going to execute that? So that is what one of the outcomes of this mapping exercise will be. Then of course, the companies who get mapped, their guiding document will be beneficial for them for moving into phase two, where we would be providing them a sort of a hand-holding support for them to maneuver through the maze of the defense sector. It is not an easy sector, but it is becoming easier as we move along. Now, one of the focus that we have in the defense and aerospace consultancy services is the MSME sector. The MSME sector is very uniquely placed compared to the large corporates. Large corporates generally tend to be very rigid. They have a bigger focus. They are not just doing defense, they may be into various other areas of business. They may be into, FMCG, may be into textiles, and defense can be just a part of their entire makeup. But MSMEs, on the other hand, are a lot more focused. And if you look at the top original equipment manufacturers of the world today, most of them started as MSMEs. Some of the companies that are manufacturing multi-role combat fighters started off as small companies behind in a garage manufacturing seaplanes. And ladies and gentlemen, I feel that India's MSME sector is poised for this giant leap. Why are they specially placed compared to others? MSMEs have greater flexibility and they add more value. To manufacture components takes up a lot more time. It takes a great effort to design the tooling to manufacture a component. When you compare it with the systems integrator, there is a lot more value add. MSMEs have the ability to move horizontally or laterally as per the sector's needs. There are dedicated R&D houses which are MSMEs in nature. Now R&D is one of the critical aspects. Before you get into the engineering of things, I think it's important to understand the physics of things. And that's where R&D comes in. And MSMEs are the bedrock of innovation and core competencies. Many verticals such as robotics, embedded technologies, unmanned systems, titanium alloys, tooling, instrumentation, rubber products, resins products have dual use. Our capability assessment is going to find these players that are there and are doing good business and are running healthy businesses with strong financials. And these companies are poised to enter the defense sector in a big way. With that, ladies and gentlemen, I would like to thank the audience for taking the time and making through this presentation.